The Hilltop Glove Podcast is sponsored by Mid Carolina Service Company.
Mid Carolina Service Company is the first name to search for your residential or commercial HVAC needs in Lexington and surrounding areas.
Just go holler at Jason and Clint. They'll hook you up on the air conditioners, on the restaurant equipment, refrigerators, refrigeration, ice machine repair. They've been doing this for years. I know them cats forever.
Family owned and operated since 2006, they pride themselves in their quality work and customer relationships. Call 803-356-4153 or visit midcarolinaserviceco.com for a no obligation quote for service today.
The Hilltop Glove Podcast is sponsored by True Brilliance Entertainment.
True Brilliance is a production, promotions, and management company dedicated to connecting artists and producers across the Carolinas to music industry professionals.
Several of their clients have placements both domestic and internationally as a result of their services.
Are you an artist or producer looking to build meaningful relationships within the music industry? Then True Brilliance is for you. Check them out at paramilitary.com. That's spelled P-A-I-R-A military.com.
This episode of the Hilltop Glove Podcast is sponsored by Bob's. Bob's is a Columbia-based retailer of over 100 Black-owned products from 20 Black-owned businesses. Bob's offers a wide range of items from household cleaning, cosmetics, and everything in between. With every visit to Bob's, you support Black-owned businesses, giving them the opportunity to grow and establish connections with our community. Bob's is located inside the Noma warehouse at 2222 Sumter Street in Columbia, South Carolina. Visit their website, weshopbobs.com for in-store pickup or to find out more. Bob's can also be found via social media on Instagram, Facebook, and TikTok at weshopbobs. When you stop by, tell them the Hilltop Glove sent you. Bob's brings quality Black brands to the Columbia community. The Hilltop Glove Podcast is sponsored by Red Rooster Sports Bar and Grill. Red Rooster is your neighborhood bar and grill serving the best wings, burgers, and baskets in the Met.
Like the amazing food, the bar is always on tap, and there's plenty of screens to watch the big game. Red Rooster is the Midland's premier meetup spot for local car and bike clubs, fraternities, and sororities.
Staff is dedicated to accommodating all kinds of parties and events. If you're looking to catch a game, have a bite, and a drink, look no further than the Red Rooster.
Red Rooster is located at 7500 Wilson Boulevard, Columbia, South Carolina. For more information, visit redroostersportsbar.com or visit them on Facebook and Instagram at Red Rooster Sports Bar. Go where the winners go.
Welcome to the Hilltop Glove Podcast.
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 Hey everyone, welcome back to another episode of the Hilltop Glove Podcast. Today we have the pleasure of speaking with Miss Tanya Murphy. Tanya is a multidisciplinary artist located in Charlotte, North Carolina. Her art is inspired by historical research and exploration of nature's beauty. She explores internal messages and ancestral visions to unveil the not-so-obvious energy left in an environment, the mind, memory, and landscapes. Her artistic pursuit is to create new thought patterns about life's connections between sustained nature and human energy. She enjoys layering light, texture, shadows, shapes, figures, and tones to compare and contrast with mediums like photography, printmaking, painting. She received her Bachelor's of Fine Arts and Photography from Temple University's Tyler School of the Art and continued studies in painting at the Pennsylvania Academy of Fine Arts. Tanya's art career has spanned more than 30 years, allowing her to serve as a curator, gallery owner/director, and art teacher. Her artworks are held in numerous public and private collections nationally. Thank you for joining us today. How are you?
I'm great. Thank you guys for having me.
Thank you. Your bio, I love it.
Thank you.
You've done a lot. I've seen your work when we were at the Charlotte Art League, but I really wanted to do this interview because you have a mixed media type of feel, and plus you also dabble in photography, painting, and the ancestral work. So that's amazing.
Awesome. I was wondering if you guys did some homework. Of
course
you did.
I stalked you.
Oh,
I looked at all your work.
That's awesome.
Just to give our audience a little background about you, what was it like for you growing up, and what inspired you to be a visual artist?
Wow. What was it like for me growing up? I guess I'll start with that. I grew up in the two places, I'll have to say. I grew up in Philadelphia, where I was born and raised, inner city, just outside of West Philadelphia, born and raised, like Will Smith said.
Okay.
True story.
Exactly. Went to Overbrook High School with him, as a matter of fact.
Oh, wow.
I took photographs of him, as a matter of fact, before he graduated. We were only a year or two behind. He was a year or two behind me.
Okay.
And I had my camera everywhere with me by that point, because that was my first 2 years of college. And I started college with photography and printmaking as my major. But growing up, I grew up in West Philadelphia, Southwest, and that's a distinguishable thing amongst us Philadelphia
Seriously,
people.
it's a real thing.
Yeah, it's a real thing. Yeah, what part of West Philadelphia
Right.
you from? You from West, or you from Southwest? So,
What's the difference?
well, Southwest, we got labeled as sort of like a little bit of bougie,
Upper class.
yeah, upper
Okay.
class, because we had single family homes, or twins that were attached on one side. You know, you got an alley to run up and down and all that kind of stuff. And they called us bougie for one reason or another. West Philadelphia houses were more attached, row homes.
Yeah.
And so maybe that's why. I don't know exactly why, but I loved the area I grew up in. I walked to school, and it started out as a very integrated area when I was a child. Mm-hmm. Yes, I grew up with a lot of folks who were from the African diaspora, and I grew up with a lot of people who were non-Black. Mm-hmm. And over the years, I would see things change, and I was trying to figure it out, but I wasn't quite understanding what was going on. The white flight thing was real.
Yeah.
And I saw a lot of my friends leave, and I'm like, why are you leaving? I don't understand. We were cool. We were all friends and go to Eagles games together and all that kind of stuff.
I'm cool with you, but
He ain't no Eagles fan. He's a 49ers
That's
fan.
okay. It's all right. We're in the Super Bowl. Anyway, growing up was wonderful. It was wonderful. I didn't know I was just a hair above poor. I didn't know. My mom was a seamstress, and she taught me to sew. And she taught me that there were a couple things I needed to know. I needed to know how to sew. I needed to know how to type. I needed to know how to, I forget what the sewing and typing are things that stick out in my head.
wow.
Believe it or not, those things have been integrated into my artwork. The sewing, certainly I can see why I'm always piecing things together with my mixed media. Mm-hmm. As much as I try to get away from it, I'm back to sewing.
Yeah.
Growing up was cool. I was raised by my mom primarily and a single mother household. My father wasn't far away, but he wasn't there every day.
Gotcha.
And I have a brother and a sister. And
Are you the oldest?
I'm a middle child.
Oh,
Yeah,
middle
middle
child.
Middle child.
Yeah, I'm the middle child. So I was the go-between kid.
Mm-hmm.
My sister's 3 years, almost 4 years younger than me. My brother and I, they call us Irish twins because he's just a year older than me.
I'm an Irish twin too.
Yeah, he's a year older than me. So we look like twins, as far as our height and the way we acted together. But, we're all still pretty close together now.
That's good.
Growing up was cool. I was an artist early.
Really?
In kindergarten, I knew I was an artist.
Oh, there was no ifs, ands, or buts about it.
How'd you know?
I thought everybody was able to draw and see.
You're one of those people.
Yeah, I thought everyone saw things in the light and in the walls, and it was just that way for me. So once I found out that people could not do that, then I began to define myself as an artist. I'm like, I guess I'm something.
Yeah.
And then my brother could draw. I guess that's another reason why I thought everybody could do it. My brother could draw.
Right.
My uncle could draw. And my mom was a seamstress. So I thought the creativity. And my father was a singer.
Oh, wow.
He played the guitar. and he sang, and my whole family was singers. So all of my uncles and aunts were singing and were known for that singing. We were in the church very, very, very heavily in the church. It wasn't an option. My grandmother had 15 kids.
Wow.
And I think growing up, all of my uncles and aunts were living except for 2, and we were all in church singing. And I thought everybody was creative. So that was me growing up. I was in church, and I used to draw the Bible. Stories. Those are my first murals, as a matter of fact.
You can't even laugh about that because it used to be my mother. She was a Sunday school teacher. And we used to have to be in there all the time with the Bible pictures, coloring the Bible pictures in, doing our little presentations and stuff. So I understand that.
That was it. I did all the Bible stories, and I had my Bible with the inlays in there, the gold leaf photos that were in the center of the Bible. And my pastime was drawing figures and drawing my hands and just doing whatever I could to occupy my time, to doodle. I wasn't much of a doodler. I would really get into drawing it. So I would make a mural. There was always a contest. As a matter of fact, in kindergarten or in elementary school, I was disqualified for a contest.
What?
I always tell this story. I was disqualified by my teacher, my 3rd grade teacher, said that I cheated and I did not draw the picture.
Because it was so good?
Yes, because it was so good.
She was hating.
Yeah, she was
Haters.
Ooh.
Back
Low key
hating.
Good Lord.
I was so upset. I had to get my mother to come to school and tell her that she didn't help me.
Yeah.
That I did it all on my own.
Yeah.
And then, I got into the contest, and, I can't remember if I won or anything. That was just the pivotal thing that sticks out in my mind, that I was disqualified because my teacher didn't trust that I did it on my own. So I was in a lot of contests, and there was a lot of great school activities and displays and things like that. And I always get into doing the maps and whatever it was, I really enjoyed art from kindergarten. I remember.
That's good. You're self-taught then. So you're self-taught compared to when you went to college.
I went on to a high school for art. As a matter of fact, by the time I left elementary school, that would have been 5th grade. In 6th grade through 8th grade, junior high, I didn't really do an art school. But I knew that art was still really a big part of my life. I was sewing, like I said. I would make my own clothes. I didn't know which direction I was going. I would make my own clothes. I would sing. I would play the piano, and because my dad was teaching me, Bill Withers and things like that. Nothing structural, just by ear, as they used to say, play by ear. And so between the sewing and playing the piano, and then I started playing the violin. I had to decide in high school what was I going to do with my creative self. So I applied for Overbrook High School, which, like I said, Will went to. And there was a program there called like the High School for Performing Arts, where Boys to Men and all those folks went to. So Overbrook had a program that was called the Magnet Program. So you could come in as a magnet artist student, which would be structured art classes or advanced art classes, art or music. So you can go and study music in an advanced way, or you can be a scholar, which means you were a brainiac and you went in, you were accepted for those. So I was accepted for the art program.
Okay, cool.
Wow, that's interesting.
That's amazing.
May I ask?
Yeah.
What year was this?
I was accepted. Okay, high school starts in 9th grade, I think?
grade,
Yeah.
9th grade in Philadelphia. So in 9th grade, I had to come up with a portfolio.
Wow,
It was
to get
really
accepted?
hard to get accepted
Wow.
into the Art Magnet program. And it
But
was
you were already developed by then.
I didn't consider myself to be that developed. It was challenging. I think you had to they gave you a list of things to do. Draw your hands. Very hard to do. And it was something I hadn't really tried to do on that level. Draw your hands holding an object.
Okay.
Draw an interior space.
Okay.
And a self-portrait. So those were really hard for a 9th grader.
Yeah.
I think I remember crying one point, like, I don't know if I can do this. And my mom said, if you're going to be an artist, you better get used to these challenges.
Yeah.
And so I did it, and I got accepted. And I went to high school for art for 4 years before college.
Wow. Did you, and this is, I just have to ask a question because, we don't get to talk to a lot of people that went to art school. Did you have other classes to take outside of art? Did they take like general education? So you would take math and
absolutely.
English composition, all that other good
absolutely. So they filtered in the art as like an advanced course.
stuff? Gotcha.
So you did everything everyone else did. You had to, of course, to finish high school. So you had your all of your math, you know, your geometry, algebra. And I found out I was good at algebra, really good. But I wasn't so great at geometry. But algebra.
And you're an artist.
Yeah, exactly. I was
That's
great.
so crazy. That's the crazy part to me because most people who are artists is one or the other.
Yeah.
Me, I was not good at math, but I would have to make it artistic in order to remember something. I would have to make a story in my head to remember, like, all right, this is what we're going to do today. X over like fractions.
Sure.
It was just a lot.
It's okay. It's okay. As a teacher, I understand that there's different ways of learning. And so I was good at algebra in 9th grade. I was also really good at English. English was my second favorite subject.
Word skills.
Word skills, communication. Being a Virgo, I'm going to have to put that in there.
I was about to say, ready?
Oh, no.
See why I knew it was coming.
I knew it.
Another
Somebody told me she was a Virgo. Wait, what's your
Another
date?
Virgo.
The 10th of September.
I'm the 9th. I'm 9/9. See, we are meant.
What?
We are meant to be.
So many Virgos in my life.
She's
communicating. Let's see what time it is.
So many Virgos
They're haters.
in my life.
Okay.
Yes, I
They're
know. I
haters.
can't escape.
Virgos
I
are
know.
the best. See, I'm so glad I
Yeah,
met
my
you.
wife is the 11th, and my daughter's the 1st.
Virgo all day.
It's around it.
Yeah.
And that's there's a reason for that.
Yeah.
You'll
Oh,
figure
yeah.
it out.
We keep you structured.
Oh, that's what it is. That's what it is.
Yeah.
That's what it is.
Awesome. I was saying that English was my second favorite subject. And, you know, I knew I was an artist, but at the same time, I knew that was also something that I had a really, really fond feeling for. So in going to college, doing my applications, I didn't have the highest SAT score. It was borderline okay, but it wasn't, you know, I'm not a great test taker. But my portfolio, they told me, was the best they had seen all year.
Wow.
This is what Tyler School of Art told me. They said, your portfolio is the best portfolio. Because, of course, you had to have another. That's their exam. That's their entrance.
Yeah.
So
Production.
that was blown away. They were blown away by that. I was then asked if I would like to go into a summer program
Oh, okay.
for English and math or whatever it was at Temple University. And I said, sure, no problem. I wasn't doing anything
Was this
for the
before
summer.
you went?
Before I went into college,
Oh,
yes.
man.
And
Like
so I
spectrum.
went there and I got all A's on the English and it's just the test taking.
It's just
That was
test-
the problem.
Yeah.
It was the test taking. So I always keep that in mind when I meet a student. I don't put anything in front of my thoughts. I'm like, let me see where they're at. Let me see how they learn.
Yeah.
And then we can figure it out.
Because everyone's different. That's good that you got to experience that. So how did you find your niche in the art field? Because I know, like, for me, as an artist, I struggle, like, all right, do I want to do abstract art? Do I want to do portraits? You know, but I also do photography. And then I can do collage work too. So when I looked at your portfolio, I was like, I have so many questions for her because you just brought everything together. So how did you find your space in the art world?
Okay, that's a great question. And it took some time. Part of it was life and and the things that I needed to accomplish. I had to look at the whole picture. It's like making a pot of soup. You know, you don't want to be too heavy on the onions or the garlic and not have enough meat. Like, where's the meat? You know, where's the beef? That's okay. When I finished college, let me start with being in college. Once I got there, I considered myself a painter.
Okay.
Immediately.
Off the bat, I was a painter. I went into college with a portfolio that was 99% paintings and drawings, maybe some ink drawings, things like that. And I enjoyed all of that. It was very good structure. I will never, ever, put a disclaimer on any of that. I have that portfolio saved for my daughter. That is that is very important to me. And sometimes I look at it and I have a sketchbook that also took me through that time period. But once I got into college, I figured it was a time to open up.
Yeah.
And it was like, everything before was kindergarten or the ABCs. So what did I really want to explore? So I wanted to explore printmaking on all levels. I already felt like I was getting A's in painting and it wasn't challenging me. So I enrolled in photography course because I always loved photography. When it was my way to escape as a young child in West Philadelphia, I look at Jet Magazine and Ebony Magazine and all the travel magazines, and it would take me outside of the area that I was living in. I knew that I wasn't going to be someone who just wanted to stay in the area where I was born. As the Bible said, the earth is the Lord's, the earth is yours, and the fullness thereof. So I if I couldn't get there, I wanted to see it in a picture.
Yeah.
So I bought a camera in my freshman year. I enrolled in photography courses. I enrolled in printmaking courses to learn something different about drawing, and so drawing on plates.
Yeah.
And I continued to take painting courses too. And photography just kept rolling over for me and over for me. And I got my degree in photography. My Bachelor of Fine Arts it says photography, but there's so much that's along with that.
Yeah.
But I got married in college.
Wow.
And I don't know. I like having a lot on my plate. I think I do more. I'm more
Under pressure.
more under pressure. I do better when there's more for me to do.
Gotcha.
You know what they say, an idle mind. So if I have too much free time,
You go
good.
crazy.
it's not good for me.
Yeah.
I don't know what it is. I need to stay busy. My mind has to stay busy.
It's
Know
the Virgo
yourself.
thing.
It is.
You start questioning, am I here? Why?
Are you
why?
being lazy?
Yeah.
Right.
Like, what
I hear
can
that about
do?
Virgos. Y'all really serious about that. Like you think I'm not
Yes.
doing enough.
Exactly.
It's like our mind. What is it? We tire ourselves out in our mind.
Yeah.
Because we're thinking so much.
all
Yeah.
the time. And my husband says that
Yep,
all the
it's
time.
true.
He's, honey, please,
You're good.
can you please just cut it off? It's early in the morning or it's late at night or, he's a Scorpio. So I just like,
Oh my God. Oh my God.
This is his problem.
are you a
Oh, Lord.
Scorpio?
Yes.
It's all right. It's all right. Yeah, but being married to a Virgo and a Scorpio, that's a whole different
Tanya,
story.
I get to watch. I be teasing them. I think it's so hilarious. Cause I'm like,
It's
hey, I know
hilarious.
this is about to be funny.
It's
We go here and
hilarious.
get my popcorn
It's
together.
hilarious.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Wow, that is funny.
It
Mhm.
It's funny.
That's hilarious.
It's funny and it's not funny.
No.
But to get back to where I was,
Yeah.
which is like my mind's racing. So you might have to sometimes remind me what I was talking about.
Yeah, so we're talking about like you needing to have a lot on your plate. It makes you got married in college.
I got married in college.
Yeah.
And my mom was thinking, she said, why are you getting married in college? I'm like, you can't just cut off that upbringing I had in the church like I had.
That's true.
Okay, it took
I
me
agree.
to, my 50s to figure out all of that. But when I was in my 20s,
Yeah.
I was at that place where, look, I was scared over my shoulder. Oh, I better get married. I'm
Yeah.
out here doing what
The
I'm not
devil's
supposed
chasing.
Exactly, double chasing me. Let me
Yeah.
get married.
Mhm.
So I got married and I was in college, which is another thing to do as a Virgo. So it wasn't a lot on my plate. So I didn't have any children.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I got married and I had the photography. I graduated. I opened up a clothing store because I was always loving fashion. So I had a clothing store. I just went through life. Basically, photography at that point was something that fit into my timeline. It fit into my scheduling. I worked for a photography lab or a photography house when you used to develop film, and so I met every photographer in town. I was in the know with knowing everybody in Philadelphia who did photography. So that was cool. I met a lot of people. And I did a lot of things. And so eventually I got divorced from my first husband. And it's okay. That's just a part of the journey. But in the interim, I ended up getting pregnant, having my daughter. And I realized that photography still was perfect because it wasn't as intense as having to to draw and paint and mix colors and do all those things. But I still love my painting. Eventually, as she got older, I started mixing media. I said, okay, I got the photograph. I would photograph people on the street, do all kinds of documenting and of West Philadelphia, which needs to be in the Smithsonian. You know, these pictures from the 90s are just fantastic. And I plan to revitalize them on large scale.
Okay.
Yeah.
But what I started doing was painting them.
Okay.
Because I love doing the black and white photography. Color photography is nice, but it just didn't excite me as much as the black and white. I think it allowed my mind to go in a different place. So I started painting with oils on my photographs, and I really enjoyed that. That's where I first started mixing media.
The media, okay. Wow. That kind of goes right into our next question. How do you decipher?
Pause.
Okay.
And then we just jump back in. Let's hold up. Okay.
Just make sure your phone is on silent.
Okay, can I move this?
Can you move your stuff back there? No, you're fine.
No, you're supposed to be there. Yeah, we ain't gonna have you sitting in the car.
We can just edit and go back.
Yeah.
He needs the address. That's what it is. What's the address here?
226 Westing.
2246 Westinghouse.
Okay.
Building 304.
Yeah, 226.
Oh, 222.
Yeah,
226
Yeah, 226.
Westinghouse.
That's the neat thing about the podcast. You can just stop and go.
Yeah.
Westinghouse Road?
The Boulevard.
Oh, Boulevard.
Yes, ma'am.
George forgot the.
And the unit number is 304.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, 226 Westinghouse.
All right, just matter.
All right, so remind me where we were.
Okay, we're talking about the mixed media, and I wanted to really ask you a question. Like, how did you decipher between which mediums to create your work of art, and also which is your favorite medium to work with?
Okay, how do I decipher which medium to work on? You know, the subject matter tells me or helps me with that. I like to start with photography. It's my sketchbook.
Right.
I hate to say that because there are some times where photography is the end story.
Yeah.
But in general, I always say I'm a lazy painter.
You don't want to do the sketching first?
I don't.
See, I'm the same way.
So you take the picture. The picture
Yes.
allows you to have a sketch.
Wow.
It's an instant sketch.
Yes, it's an instant sketch.
Yep.
And I feel better that it's my sketch as opposed to surfing the web and finding the image. I like to make my own sketch.
Okay.
So when I want to tell a story, I go out into that environment. The environment's important. So a lot of my work is about the Southern environment. And then there's a lot that's about the urban environment. But I go out there with my camera and I'm photographing, whether it's I'm photographing a playground in the city or if I'm photographing a farm or a landscape. So I'm there first. And then I do the best photograph that I think that warrants it itself as a photograph. I don't try to photograph for later producing a painting or that kind of thing.
So do you photograph? So are you photographing mainly for like composition? So when you go back and you process what it is that you've shot, it inspires you when you do paint?
I photograph for the beauty of the landscape,
Like
for the
the
beauty of the
moment.
moment. And then I just take in the moment. A lot of time, I'm not just shooting. I'm very specific about what I shoot. I still shoot like I'm shooting film, I think. You know, when it was expensive to process and you had to think about it. Yeah, I shoot, I'm still shooting analog and processes. And that's the other thing. I love alternative processes with my photography. If I could paint my emotions on, I'm going to do it.
Yeah.
Because I love to paint. It gives me that feeling. So I do. Right now I'm working on things where I'm painting on or transferring. And that gives me that sense of, that I'm not in a dark room, but I'm in a light dark room.
Yeah.
And but
That's crazy to
all
think
that's
about,
open for me. I don't like to limit myself, but that's challenging. That thought process is challenging to just be that open sometimes, because I have to focus in order to make especially if I want to do a body of work.
Yeah.
but I
stay
think I have
focused
more,
instead of your
right,
mind
sure,
exploring.
just going off on its own. But I do several bodies of work at the same time, and I don't know if that makes any sense. But I might be doing a body of work where it's nature oriented, and then I might be doing a body of work where it's collage oriented.
Okay.
And then I'm doing a body of work where it might be portrait or figurative. And then sometimes it all ends up together.
And you're working on these things simultaneously?
You sound like you
Yes.
hopped each thing.
I do. I spent I could say the longest hop was 10 years. So 10 years I did photography, and then about 10 years was painting only. And then I decided, I'm going to bring them together. And then that's when I really found my niche where I said, I think bringing them together is really where I'm at. I like combining the media together. And so even if I'm doing one thing, it's an exploration for the final project, which is to me going to be mixed up somehow.
Yeah.
Yeah. In one form or another. I don't waste anything. So if I'm doing printmaking and I'm rubbing and pulling things, the pulls are saved.
Okay.
Because I know that they probably will be later on, they will be painted or cut or carved.
Yeah.
That's the sewing coming back in it. And I get mad at myself, like you say. Sometimes I'm sitting there going, why am I doing this? I know this hurts my back. Or I know I do that all the time, but then I just give in and say, this is who you are.
Yeah.
This is how your conversations are.
Yeah.
This is how your brain works. And as much as you want to do abstract work, you don't work that way.
Yeah.
So I enjoy abstract artists when I see their work, and I tell them, like, I really, really enjoy that. And I love how you can do that because it's just so different than
It's a
me.
carefree nature.
Yeah.
Instead
It's
of
not-
being a Virgo, we're like
Right.
trying to perfect.
Sure.
Is that line correct? Is this in the right spot? But abstract is just like, all right, you just let your emotions flow. And that's why I find hard to be an artist, because you got to be vulnerable. That's probably why I haven't even done any artwork in a long time, because you got to be completely vulnerable. And that's really hard.
It is hard to be vulnerable. And that's the conversation I do have with myself sometimes. How vulnerable are you willing to be? How transparent are you willing to be? And that's with the physicality of the artwork as well as the thought process involved in it. And just those spiritual voices that I get. That's what I call them anyway. And if I listen, I think that I come up with some really great things when I listen.
Man. Oh, so I have to insert this. So do you feel, and I always like to understand folks, the way that they process their art. You all sound like you all work. 'Cause I used to have, in college, I took this class. This professor, and she's a classically trained violinist. It's amazing. She would play for us in class. I'm like, wow, it's the best thing I've ever heard in my life, because you get to hear it live.
Right.
And she would tell me all the time, I know I'm great at this, but I like jazz music. And I was like, why? And I would ask her that, because I like jazz music too, but I would ask her, I'm like, why? And she was like, I just think that jazz musicians are so amazing because they can move off of just pure raw emotion. I can't do that. I need to have this set down. I need to make sure the composition is correct. I want notes where they're supposed to be. I want to hit my marks. That is what gives her the satisfaction in doing and creating and performing the art. With a jazz musician, it's just, all right, I'm going to go out here. This is how I feel right now.
Freestyle.
And you're going to get this freestyle. So that's what so when you're creating your work, you like the control of the environment. Is that correct?
Yes, but I also like the emotion too. I'm two-sided.
Okay. So
With
how do you
that.
push them? How do you?
I think the works that really express that the most would be the series I did in 2009. I showed it I had the exhibit at the African American Museum in Philadelphia. What started out as photographs ended up with these brush strokes, these haphazard patterns running across from me, painting random and fast-paced and using tissue papers and pulling and just scrubbing and building up and carving figures. All these things came out of my brain. It was like, just put these dolls on them, or just do that. And I'm thinking, no, that doesn't make any sense. I don't know how to do that. And I was afraid of doing it, but I just did it anyway. And then I started painting on it and scrubbing and rubbing, and people would think it's made out of copper or made out of they wouldn't really be able to figure out the substrate or, I'm like, that's my photograph there first. And then there's this carving of my great grandmother. And then there's the paint, and then the paint's falling down in between the carving of the blouse or the necklace. And then I'm rubbing it and I'm I really did the emotional aspect of those works.
Yeah.
And I don't think you can look at my artwork and not see emotion, even if it's a photograph. Because, like I said, when I'm on the landscape or if I'm in the neighborhood or wherever I am, I'm really thinking about it. And so I don't take that picture until I have some emotional content that I'm trying to portray. And when people look at my work, they say, oh, I get chills or I get goosebumps or I'm feeling a certain thing. Universally, I'm feeling this energy. And that's because I think I am being pretty successful with getting that across.
You're
like
it's
an emotional feeling for me, and I'm trying to capture it and then portray it.
Man, that's amazing. We have to move on to this because I know I'm waiting to ask about this, but
that goes into our next question about ancestral downloads. So I literally just signed up for this ancestral free summit because you feel things and you hear things about your ancestors guiding you throughout life. So I was like, this is the perfect question to ask her when I was looking at your work. Can you tell us a little bit more about your experience and interactions with those particular spirits? And
this portion of the podcast is brought to you by Lynx Recording Studio.
Lynx is a premier audio and video recording studio in the greater Charleston area with 4 completely different booths, multiple peripherals, and 4 producers. They have the ability to service all facets of audio and video creativity.
If you need to record a song, a podcast, create a demo, or even take headshots and complete drops for Hollywood film, they've done it.
Call them at 843-879-9386 or find them online at lynxrecordingstudios.com. That's Lynx, Lynx, recordingstudios.com.
did you stay connected and attuned with your spiritual leaders?
Wow. Okay. Yeah. When I read that proposed question, I said, she or he must have looked at my work and understood. And understood, not only see it, but understood what I was trying to portray. And I didn't know at the time what it was. I hadn't read or even explored that, on in real terms.
Right.
I grew up with a grandmother who was super religious, but spiritual in that she would say things like, the stories. I mean, the stories that are in my head, they're not scary.
Yeah.
And they were haunting, but not scary. And that's the way I wanted my work to come across. It's something that stays with you, but it's not there to intimidate you or to scare you.
Yeah.
So when my grandmother told me the stories, she didn't tell it in a way that would scare me. Like she would say, oh, I saw, this little person or this thing happened right after your great uncle died.
Yeah.
And I would say, really? How long afterwards do we get these visits? As a Virgo, I'm going, okay.
I need to do
now that sounds crazy, but I'm going to go with it.
Yeah.
Now, tell me more. Was it like an hour? Is it 2 days? Is it within a week? Am I going to get this in a week? Or how's this going to happen? Is it going to be a flicker of light?
Yeah.
So those are the stories that my grandmother on my father's side told me.
Okay.
And she's the one who I really think about as being from the deep, deep South, although both my grandmothers were from the South.
Okay.
They lived not far from each other. As a matter of fact, my grandma, just like we're sitting right now on the North Carolina, South Carolina borderline, that's how my parents were. My father was on the North Carolina side, and my mother was just on the borderline of the South Carolina side. And they met, and the whole family, got to know each other.
Yeah. And they ended up going north?
They ended up getting married, deciding who they were going to date, because there were a lot of kids between them,
of course.
you know. And so my mother ended up with my dad, and then when she was old enough, they got married and they moved north to Philadelphia, and everybody migrated to Philadelphia a little at a time. So one uncle and then another aunt, and then they would help each other get here, and then they moved down the street from each other. We literally could walk from within an hour. I could walk from one uncle's house to the next uncle's to the next, and then end up in Germantown, you know. So we would get all over Philadelphia that way from just visiting. Like I said, I had 15 aunts and uncles. Yeah. And we all had uncles, and they got married and they had kids. And so I ended up with 75 first cousins.
Good God.
First cousins. I'm not talking about second and third cousins.
Yeah, because
by the time we got to 13, and by the time we got to my grandmother's, when she passed away at 104, she had 175 between the first, second, and the third cousins. It went that deep.
This don't make no sense. How much
it was so big.
Our stories are so much alike. It doesn't make any sense.
Yeah.
So you come from a big family too?
I just have one of my grandmas died at 104.
Okay.
And I had a family in Philadelphia.
Oh, shut the front doors.
And then my great grandma had 12.
Wow.
All right, this day's gonna be real interesting.
This is so weird.
That's funny, and we're both Virgos.
That's what I'm saying. Our birthday is one day after each other. This is so.
Y'all pay attention to the moon cycles?
No, I didn't look.
Moon is Sunday.
Yeah, we're full moon. Yeah,
I have to call my daughter to find out what that's all about.
Yeah, please do.
You know, she's in the 31-year-old area.
There you go.
The bottom line is my grandmom used to tell me stories that did not scare me, but intrigued me. And so I would look for things in the atmosphere.
Yeah.
Because I was told they were there.
I agree.
Yeah.
And my sister is the same way. You know, if I give her a statue, she'll put it there just to appease me. Oh, thank you. That's so nice. But then I'll come back to her house later and it's gone.
No.
And I'm like, so what happened to that really nice statue I gave you? She comes to visit me, and I have my room that she stays in.
Yeah.
And I come in there, and she's got the curtains drawn, all the statues are turned down, and things like that. And I never realized how she reacted to what my grandmother and her perception. She's a Sag, so her perception of spirit, what's going on around her, is different than my perception.
Yeah.
But I didn't realize that. How people took my artwork. And my daughter, who was raised by me as a single mom for most of her I got married again. She was 3. From 3 to 16 or 17, she had a dad figure around, and her dad was always around.
Yeah.
But she told me that she was scared of my artwork. And she called it spooky, but I didn't think about that as a little kid. You know, growing up, your mom is doing these carvings and paintings with photographs and these old Southern landscapes and things. So it's funny for us to talk about it now, you know. But I felt the download before I understood that was what it was.
Yeah.
I just felt like I was being haunted. By haints, which is what my grandmother told me. They were called haints, not saints, but haints. And so I always figured that my ancestors were trying to guide me or tell me something even before I knew to receive it. In deciding to receive it is when I really was able to open up my mind. Once I really was able to receive it, then I started reading things and it just opened my mind completely from the spirituality that I grew up with and going deeper and really understanding a lot more. And so that's where I'm at now artistically. It's like when something's really involved in your brain that much, you can't help but turn it around and put it in your artwork.
If not, it's going to keep haunting you.
Exactly. Yeah. So that's where I'm at right now. Yeah. I'm downloading things that don't necessarily fit my character in my artwork's character from the past, but it's still a part of the journey and understanding our energy with nature more universally, more humanistic, but also just not so much figurative. So I'm involved right now with, again, exploring the landscape. The latest work I did involved me transferring ink with large leaves that were dried and, finding the beauty in their transition and all that kind of stuff. So I'm having a lot of fun with that.
Do you feel that the environments channel the spirits?
I can't say that per se. I go to where I think I might find a little bit of encouragement or inspiration.
Yeah.
But, in the heart of Philadelphia, in the middle of the city.
You're right. And that was what I was wondering, because I know, like you said, you're taking these southernscapes and transforming them, but coming from a cityscape, the feelings that you get, they have to be totally different. A cityscape is way different from our southern landscapes down here, because I know my brother and I, we grew up and lived in New Haven, Connecticut for a few years, and I just know the vibe of being there in a city, the smell, the movement of it, et cetera, like that's totally different. So when we came down south, like when people say everything slows down, it slows down. Everything's but then you can see things differently too.
Absolutely. That
slowing down process is a good thing. I know our grandmother, she always explained it to us when we were young. She was like, hey, you all had to come back down here to be raised. She said you couldn't be raised well up there. I used to always say, what does she mean by that? It was fine up there. It was cool. Like, we had everything. It was right in hand. Everything was moving quickly. But as I got older, I started understanding what she meant by that. Just the spirituality of being close to where our people are from. And I know, Kevin and I, we were always teased about this, but my grandmother, like, she was Geechee, and her folks from Charleston, and they carry this large spiritual background, especially of, even though they're Christian, oh, it's different. It's a little different.
Oh, I'm sure.
It's a little different from the normal thing, but they're very into the spiritual understanding of your ancestors.
That's right.
And getting those downloads is important. And I know as children, we were lucky because we got to live with her for a few years.
Okay, good.
She downloaded that into us. So we don't act normal. I tell people, we don't act like normal folks our age and from our demographics. And they're like, why you act like? I said, because my grandmother raised me for 2 years. Like, so we had to learn things a different way. And I'm just wondering, it seems like you've had that effect on your life. Especially coming, they came from a large family, man. So you had to experience it.
Well, family, my uncles, they were like my dad. And my grandmom was it says mom. She's my second mom. She did live with each of us for a certain amount of time.
Excellent.
So she did live with us for a little while. She just went from family to family, and she ended up staying with my aunt mostly, which was really, really close. But then she moved back down south for a little while. And then when she got dementia eventually and had to come back up to Philadelphia. Yeah. But yeah, she was the first to really, to make me think outside of what I saw, what I thought I saw directly in front of me. Yeah. And to just think about, the possibilities of things outside of what was supposed to be normal.
Exactly.
And it was a different language altogether. And as a matter of fact, when she was laying in bed just before she passed away and she was staying in the dining room, one of the last conversations we had, and she didn't really know who I was, but she was looking past me, and there was a grate on the door, because you have to have your doors grated in this, with a gate. So the gate was beautiful it had trees on it. And she said, oh, look at the trees and so and so, and it's moving. And I said, yeah, Grandma, that's so and so. And my aunt said, Marie, which is my middle name. She says, why are you talking to Mama like that? There's no trees out there moving. And I said, that's her and I having a conversation. And I see what she's saying. If she's saying it, that's her reality.
That's what it is.
So I'm going to confirm it for her.
Yeah.
Anyway, my family, as a matter of fact, they were funny about my artwork. They were really funny about that artwork. Yeah. They said, why are you down there? Because they moved to Philadelphia, child. And they're like, oh, we don't want to think about being in the fields no more.
Exactly. Right. We're city people.
We don't want to think about all that hard work we did. And I said, because my work at the museum ended up in in the newspaper, front page and all that kind of stuff. It was a really big spread to Inquirer. And then all of a sudden they were like, wow. this is nice. I never thought about it that way.
So crazy.
I never thought about it that way.
Like, this is why I was thinking like this.
I'm honoring you and what you
Yeah.
did. I'm honoring your hard work.
Yeah.
Giving you
I'm
your
not.
flowers.
I'm showing you. I'm giving you your flowers. I'm not doing slave picks. This is my aunt and uncle and the land that they harvested.
Yeah.
This is my mom when she wanted to go to school and had to work the farm. I'm just saying, I hear you.
Yeah.
I see you.
I see you.
Yeah.
You know,
Mhm.
this
So
is don't.
like-
I'm not just trying to forget about it because it's uneasy to think about.
Mm-hmm.
I'm saying to my child or my grandchild, look, we took care of this land.
Yep.
And this house that your grandmom left,
Proud of it.
your grandmother who left it to you, to me, who I'm leaving it to you. We used to plant our watermelon here, and you can always go back there and plant something
Yeah.
and have some
Yeah.
food if the government doesn't shut you down.
Wink, wink.
Wink, wink.
Wink,
But
wink.
what I'm saying is that you have land that you can grow something on.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And-
And
and-
it's
and-
power.
Yeah, it is. And you have to think about it that way. And that's what we forgot moving up to the city is that we can feed ourselves. and
Yes.
You can plant some food. And, my husband and I moved here and we love North Carolina.
Yeah.
And we love the fact that we can go out in our backyard and plant some collard greens.
do you do
Yes,
that
we
now?
do. We
Good.
do. We plant collard, and he's from New York.
Oh wow.
What part?
He's from Manhattan. He's right
Okay.
Oh, he's city boy.
He's
Yeah,
right
straight
from
city.
Manhattan.
Okay.
Straight,
So y'all
okay.
collaging. Whoa.
from. Yeah. So
Man.
we're down here trying to be Southerners,
That's so crazy.
trying to plant seeds,
Yeah. Literal.
literally.
Yeah.
And I'm like, honey, we don't know what we're doing, but by the second year or the third year, we had a
Figured it
nice
Figured it
harvest
out.
of collard greens and kale and spinach
That's
and
amazing.
not cabbage, the other ones, Brussels sprouts.
Sprouts. Ooh.
Yeah, we did pretty good.
Okay.
Oh, okra.
Mhm.
I turned them out on some okra because he wasn't eating that.
Oh,
but, I had,
wow.
You gotta put it
Okra's
in there.
great.
Southern
you gotta know
food.
how
Yeah.
to do
That's
it.
great.
And I did. I turned a lot of people out on okra who swore they would
so
not
crazy.
eat okra. And I'm a city girl.
Yeah.
But when I make you some okra, they turn around and they look at me with a funny face. And I said, what's wrong with you? What's wrong?
Yeah.
Say something.
It's like, yeah.
And they say, I can't believe I'm eating okra.
Yup. That's good.
But you know what I love about this conversation? And this is something I know me and my brother have been talking about for about the past 2 or 3 years at least. And I know I've heard someone say this before, but really what it comes down to is, especially when it comes to Black Americans, like, it doesn't matter what part of the country.
Your profession? Yes. Scott.
Pardon us.
Enjoy Stephanie. You enjoying yourself?
You up next. You in the hot seat
Yeah,
next.
and I will tell you this. I'll tell you this. You don't realize how everything is threaded today
Yeah.
for a reason. Everybody's
Oh, I know.
here. Yeah, you see it, paying attention, right?
We get to the studio.
Yes.
This is cool.
Yeah. Right. Go.
It's what one of the things that we've been talking about, me and my brother over like the past 2 or 3 years, and this is something, maybe it's like a long-term project we're thinking about. But a couple years ago, I remember I forgot what I was listening to. I think I might have been watching something on TV or a documentary, but it talked about Black American culture, meaning from, of course, its start all the way to contemporary, like modern day. And how, despite us folks being located in different parts of the country and us being located in a lot of urban environments, at the root and at the core, we're all Southern in culture. No matter how far we try to remove ourselves away from it,
Detroit, Michigan.
Right.
Chicago.
right? But we all have those same roots and those same ties. And it's neat hearing those stories because there's a book. As a matter of fact, there's an awesome book you need to check out. It's an audio book, but then you can also read it too. It's a book about the life of Dapper Dan.
Yeah,
Oh,
you got
okay.
it. That book.
Yes.
Yes. Yes.
And when you read that book, like in the first chapter or two, he talks about his roots. But
And you were doing the same.
and you were doing the
exact
same thing. And so this is what he shared. So his family is originally from Darlington County, South Carolina.
Yeah.
But he was explaining how
This is
Black
cool.
folks got up to New York in Harlem, especially during the early 20s, 30s, like during the Great Migration.
Sure.
And what happened was people would move in on blocks, so basically towns. So if everybody was from this one town, they would all live on this
that
block,
one block.
right? And then the next block you'd go. So you'd have somebody, like you'd have folk from Greensboro on one block.
That's
Then
funny.
down another block, you'd have somebody from Fayetteville.
Yep.
And then across from
Literal.
that, then across from that block, you'd have folk from Spartanburg, South Carolina.
Wow.
And that was like that until the 50s and the 60s. And what they did was they tore down all that housing and they built up the housing projects.
Yes.
And what they did was they disturbed community and they threw all of them
in one spot. So you had disparate communities. So for instance, if you had Marion and Mullins County, you had folks from there, they would put them together. And where you didn't have dysfunction before, now you created dysfunction.
Right.
Because you
So
merged them.
It
You
was
forced
the
them to more
seeds of
merge.
what we see now with the issues that we ran into in the 80s.
and even influences of things like the hip hop culture and all this stuff. All these things are factors.
Forming at the same
Forming,
time.
yeah.
Yeah, but it all
It's interesting.
starts from
It's very interesting.
But he
You
was
the way you were talking, it was just funny because listening to that, and that's what I was hearing. I was hearing him explain his story. This is why my family's here. And like you said, each person moved up slowly, but then surely everybody came up to, and you could do what? Walk from house to
one
house to house and end up on,
Sure.
because y'all community, that was the community
That's right.
from the South. That's just, like I said, it was cool that you just said that. You don't have to say nothing. It's just, that's how you know it was real what he was talking about. And I just find that interesting. I didn't expect to hear that today. Yeah, that caught us off guard.
I know
but
when I'm up north, like when I'm visiting my family, I can only stay for a certain amount of time because I'm like, where are the birds? Where are the trees? Like, I need quietness at night. I don't want to hear sirens and people hollering from the rooftop. Like,
of the city.
I need quietness. So that's how I know I really like the South, even though I have family up north. But this is home. Yeah.
Absolutely. It is. It was the feeling of coming home. And I've never adapted to an environment so quickly as I did when I moved here 5 years ago.
Wow. Wow.
Love it. And I can't think of anywhere else I'd want to live.
See?
Go South. All right, I guess to wrap up today, we always like to end with this question because, of course, we're millennials trying to learn how to adult. And so we got to ask practical questions.
Yes.
So how do you balance your everyday life and still create art daily while also being in the community? How do you do that in your life?
Okay. I'm going to share a little bit of what I call middle-aged wisdom. and I tell it to my daughter who's 30. You know, I think you guys are hard on yourselves, really hard. But, you know, there may be a reason for that I don't really connect with. Yeah. One thing the older people used to say, and I'm going to use it, and I do use it now, this too will pass, or what's the other thing? You know, just wait. Time, you know, it'll work itself out. So balancing life has a way of doing what it does. And I've begun to think of myself as not so much at charging at it anymore, as opposed to just riding with it. Riding with it. And that's just something I've seen over the years. I would stress or frustrate myself about a certain thing or a certain quota or a certain agenda that I had. And then was it really worth all that stress and aggravation to my body now that I know what it does? No, it really wasn't. Like in motherhood, it's never perfect, you know, and I only have one child, so I'm not the one to talk about people who have multiples because I'm sure it's a lot harder with multiples. But, you know, watching a child grow, it's just sort of like the younger version of your life. So when they're a teenager and they're going through that awkward
Weird
place
phase,
and weird phase, guess what? It's going to happen to you when you hit 50 again.
Oh, it comes again?
It does.
Wow.
It doesn't, just because you did it as a teenager doesn't mean that you're not going to hit that awkward phase again. At, I don't know, it could be 40, 40 for you, or it could be 30 for you, or it could be 50 for you. It's a wave in the vibration that you just got to either get with that vibration, or you could try to mix it up and figure out, you know. but my daughter was going to be a teenager and go through the teenager thing with her teenager friends. So you gotta go along with it. Okay, who's your friend?
Yeah.
What is that person going to bring into your life? Okay, so what's that little dilemma going to bring? Because she had one friend who was a cutter.
Got you.
And then she had other friends who had hot tubs and parties all the time. And then she had other friends who were, she had the celebrity life because she was going to a friend's school, a Quaker school.
Yeah.
So I was telling you that. And, she had everybody. And she had friends who would come home and she would come home and say, oh, so-and-so said he could say this because his daddy and his mama are lawyers. And I'm saying, but okay. So the point being that you don't know what's going to come into your life. And so when you approach life, I don't know, we don't control anything. That's the lesson that I learned. I don't control much of anything. I can control my energy, my spirit, try to meditate or pray, whichever way you want to describe it. But that's the only thing I'm trying to get a control over. Now, how much artwork I do, I don't beat myself up with that anymore.
Good.
Surprising. That's nice to hear.
I don't, because I did at one point. I would beat myself up over, you didn't produce today.
Enough,
But it's always going on up in my mind. And if I don't put it on paper, I already told you I'm a lazy painter. So I'm not going to doodle. I'm not going to pretend that, but I might read a book that's giving me the visions.
Yeah.
I realize that reading will also inspire my creativity. And so whatever you do that day that you can say is inspiring your creativity. That's the way I look at art now. Like today, it's reading a book. I started reading a book by Hawkins about, neutrons and photo, all that stuff. All that stuff. I started reading that and I'm like, wow, that's really deep. And so I've been surfing, the goodwill for books. Just, what are people getting rid of? So I'm like reading, these books are brand new. People are like, aren't
That's
into
crazy,
books
but
anymore?
yeah, no, you're
What
right.
is that?
Yeah,
I don't know.
It's a Kindle, man. You get a Kindle now.
I'm not trying to have my eyes on a computer like that.
Yeah.
I'm rejecting that. There was a point where it was a little trendy for me. Oh yeah, computer everything. I'm like, wait a minute. I don't feel that. I want to turn a page. I want to fall asleep with it on my lap.
Yeah.
For me right now, that's what I'm doing for my little hobby thing, is because I don't have a hobby.
Yeah.
No hobby is shopping, probably buying clothes. Not clothes that aren't already used. I like to recycle everything. So I buy everything already maybe worn or somebody didn't want it. Like, oh, why didn't you want this? I refurbish it or I, whatever.
You know how to sew.
I give it away.
Yeah.
I sew. I can fix things up.
Fix things. Yeah.
So to me, that's creative. So what I don't do is pressure myself to just do one thing creatively. So I can say for today, this was very creative. This conversation was creative from my mind. And I'm going to find the book by Dapper Dan. I'm going to read that.
Yep.
I wanted to get it when he first passed away, but I just didn't do it.
Yeah.
But to answer your question, I do try to touch my art somehow every day. But I just don't put pressure that it has to be the exact thing that I'm doing. If I just want to go in there and look at it.
Yeah. Because sometimes you just got to look so far away.
Sometimes you just have to look at it far away and then say, oh, I get it. Because I'm going to tell you what, when I go to sleep, it doesn't shut down. I had to learn to shut it down because I don't want to go crazy like a Van Gogh and just cut my ear off and people don't want to see.
Good point. Valid point.
That's not the end I want.
That's valid point.
That's not the end I want. It's not that serious.
Yeah.
I'm a person. I want to have a family. I want to enjoy my husband and I want to spend time with my daughter. So art used to be a thought that in my mind where it had to be all and everything. No, it's not that. I want a life. I want to enjoy myself. I want to go to the beach. I want to just lay on the couch sometimes and read a book.
Yeah.
I don't pressure myself that way. But when I do get in that place, and I'm going to be honest completely, when I get in the zone, I'm in the zone.
Yeah.
And I respect the zone. I give it 100%. And my husband has to come knock on the door or say, baby, did you come to bed? Did you eat? So did you eat? I'm still here. Did you feed me?
Yeah.
Did you wash the clothes?
Yeah.
So when that time happens, that's when that time happens. Yeah. And that's the person that I am.
Yeah.
But I can't be that all the time because I don't want to be that all the time. I want to have a life. This is my third marriage. I learned that lesson.
Yeah.
That I just can't be that crazy, selfish person that just sit in the studio and don't make time for any. I don't want that person.
Yeah.
I learned, I don't say it the hard way. I'm happy that I'm with the husband I'm with now.
Yeah.
But I learned that it's not everything. And then sometimes I feel bad about my daughter. You know, you can have guilt the rest of your life. I'm like, oh, did I bother you when I said, don't call me mommy? You know, I had to ask her. I had to say, was that a problem for you?
Yeah.
And she says, oh, I got it. It was funny. I'm like, no, really, you can tell me.
Yeah.
When you came, because I had a 6,000 square foot studio / house.
Yeah.
So half of it was the home. I was married to an architect that time.
Oh, wow.
And so he's an artist.
Yeah.
And so we had our battles of art at that point, you know. So he was a different, let's say if I was right side, he was left side. So we had this big place. And so my daughter's bedroom and then my studio was on one side. And then her bedroom, you had to come through these big dark barn doors and that was in that side. And then he had his office on another side. And then we had a living room on the other side. So it was more like a museum here and a house here and her bedroom. And one day she said to me, you know, Mom, can I just have a bedroom with doors?
Mm-hmm.
Regular
I never
doors?
I never thought about it. Yeah, like she didn't have privacy. She didn't have, because it was cool. All her friends loved it. Oh, we going downtown.
Yeah.
We going to Aria's spot.
Yeah.
You know, we can just run around in this big loft. And she said, I don't have doors.
She just wanted a simple room. Yeah.
So what I learned is, you know, but that was my thing at the time. I was going to be this big fancy artist. Everybody was going to know me in Philly. And that's how I was that.
Yeah,
so
you lived the life.
I was living that life, you know, and, you know, you can look at the city and, but anyway, the bottom line is the pressure you put on yourself is what you put on yourself. You got to decide as an artist, every day, my decision is, okay, I'm gonna wake up, I'm gonna be a person, I'm gonna be an artist. I can be an artist person. I can just be just a wife today, you know, no problem with saying that. I have no problem with saying that. I love the fact that people are going back to, I just want to be a housewife. I'm like, really? Some millennials are saying that. Like
Some are.
Yeah. That's like a thing now.
Yeah. And that's a drastic change.
It's a drastic change because I think people, when you see in life, like if you just, okay, I could push myself every day. Let me go out there, get the job, make all this money. Yeah. And then what I never had kids. And you have to decide what you want to do.
Yeah. That's
my advice. Decide what you want to do. Don't put these pressures on yourself. I don't do it anymore. When you hit a certain age, you're like, honey, baby, you know. That's why old people used to sound like that. I'm like, are they serious?
Because they experience.
Nonchalant.
Nonchalant. Like, jaded. Just rubbing their hands, put the money in their bra. I'm like, they have a bank account.
No, we don't need that.
So, right. Exactly. Yeah. So for me now that I'm in my mid-50s, on the later side, my thing about art is it's a part of my life and it should help me enjoy myself as a person and not put all these stress and strains. I would love to be in another museum show. That's going to happen. I already know that. Yeah. But what age that is, I don't know. Look, I'm going to do art till I die. If that's 80 or 90, I don't care. You know, I'm mid-career and I'm going to enjoy myself now at this stage. Maybe I'll have some grandkids one day. Yeah. I don't know. But the bottom line is I don't wake up every day saying, what art am I doing today? If it's not inspiring me today, or I'll just might get my camera and just go for a walk. Yeah. And sometimes it just might be my phone camera. Yeah. You know, I used to be, carry the big camera.
Yeah.
As soon as you don't have it,
you're going to know
that's when you're going to need it.
I missed
that shot.
That's it.
It's not, the pixels are too bad on my phone. I beat myself up too much. I was like, I'm not doing it anymore. I just try to balance. I try to eat a good meal every day, start off my day. Yeah. That's my balance. You know, getting my health together, have a good relationship that's decent, you know, and do a decent amount of art either in my head or on some physical plane. You know, that's it. That's all. That's how I do it.
Do you have any upcoming works or projects to talk about or that we can look forward to?
Yeah, there's a show I'm doing. It's Black History Month. I'm just going to say it. Okay. Yep. So every Black History Month somebody's going to call me about showing somewhere.
Yeah.
And I used to take offense to that. I'm not going to lie. I did. No.
So you only called me in February?
Yeah, I'm Black History 365. Call me in March or April and say, hey, you want to just show some of your work.
Yeah.
So I did have a problem one time. Like, am I an artist or am I Black artist? Is my work Black or is it just, I can stop with these labels.
Yeah.
Okay, so it's Black History Month. It is what it is. It's systemic. This is what we know it to be.
Yeah.
So when someone called me and said, hey, we're doing a Black History Month show, would you like to do it? For me, it's exposure. So I'm always going to say yes.
Mm-hmm.
So there's a show in Clover right outside of Lake Wiley that's happening this month. And I'll be in that. As far as that, I'm getting ready for the spring and just doing spring's always a good time for me with shows. So I'm doing some of that. But I'm working on getting an art gallery again.
Oh,
I used to have 3. I have one in Detroit, which I still have.
Hey.
I'm part of an organization called the National Conference of Artists, and there's a gallery in Detroit, which I've never visited, and I feel bad about it, but that's okay.
You gotta make it out there.
I'll make it out there one day. And I have a really good girlfriend from Detroit. There's a reason to go. But I had a gallery in Boston that closed. I had one in Philadelphia that closed. But I'm looking for some Southern ones now. So I'm looking for in Charleston.
That's where I'm from.
Are you?
Yeah,
I'm
that's
looking at a
Charleston.
gallery in Charleston, and they're following me on my Instagram. So I'm looking at them too.
Yeah.
You know, it's a 2-way street.
Yeah.
You have to fit. And
Yeah.
they have to fit you.
Yeah.
I'm looking at Atlanta, and I'm looking at DC area and Baltimore area.
Okay.
That makes sense.
I would love to come check out an exhibit, once you get everything going.
Yeah, once I show some new work, and of course, I'm at the Art League, which I've been for a year. Are
We
you
like that
I like
place
the art
now.
league. Yeah.
Ever since we visited last weekend, we're like, okay,
too
we
dope.
love this
awesome?
place.
It's brand new. It hasn't even been open a year.
Really?
No, it's not lying.
Not even a year.
It's
Oh,
not
wow.
lying.
So
That's
I
what
know
blew
in
my mind.
3 or 4 years it's going to be jumping.
Yeah.
It's not even a year. June.
Wow.
That's why it was good to go visit.
Yeah.
Excellent
We got
location.
first eyes dibs on everything.
Yeah.
And we got you guys on it. So
Yeah.
Did you guys check out the second floor?
Oh, you know we did.
yeah.
We know I'm
we
nosy.
went Roman.
Good.
Real nosy with it.
Good. I didn't get your sign. I'm trying. Wait, let me guess. I'm gonna guess Cancer, but I'm not sure.
Pisces. Libra.
No. I'm an enigma.
Capricorn.
No.
What are you? Just
I'm an Aries.
Oh, I would have never guessed that.
Not
Yeah,
from not
first.
just from this
Yeah.
country. I would have to go out party with you.
Yeah,
tonight.
yeah, follow me.
Okay.
Yeah.
He a
I
good
told
old
you I'm
fire.
being good today. Good behavior.
Alright.
Okay.
He is.
Like good behavior. I didn't hit my mic yet or nothing. I was good.
Good.
But I really enjoyed this conversation today.
I did too.
I know we're going to come and see some of your work. And hopefully we'll have another conversation in the future. Don't forget about us
because I'm sure
when you finish blowing up more.
Right, we need to get your autograph now.
Yeah, seriously, before time. But we're gonna close up today. We appreciate you joining us today, Tanya, here on the Hilltop Glove Podcast. I know our listeners are gonna enjoy this a lot, and then I think when we get the rest of these interviews today, it's gonna make sense. The thread that goes through all of
it's
these.
really
We're
interesting.
talking about a lot of spirituality today, but
It's real.
a
That's the
lot
theme today.
Yeah,
But,
well, people can always see my work on my website. I don't know.
Please,
if you
please
guys
drop it,
gonna
drop
post
it. Yeah, we're
Drop
gonna
the
post it,
name.
but drop the
okay,
name.
it's Juice. It's like J. It's not like orange juice, but it's JOOSC, like moose with a J.
Moose
And
with a
it's
J.
it's juice is a spinoff of the word juice, like the juices that flow, and that's why I picked the name. I used to have a podcast called Juice Unleashed.
That's what they talk. Yes.
And what about your Instagram? Where can they find you?
Tanya Murphy Artist. Make sure you put the artist on the end of that at Tanya Murphy Artist. Thank you.
We thank you for joining us today.
Thank you
Appreciate
guys
it.
for having me. I had a lot of fun.
Yay.
Yeah.
All right, that's a
There
wrap.
you go. Well, that made my day. Thank you so much. Thank you for dealing with our coffee.
I told you it was easy. It's like a...
That's it for today's episode of the Hilltop Glove Podcast. Make sure to subscribe to us on Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, and other platforms. Also follow us on Instagram and Facebook at Hilltop Glove.